How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, real quick, do you feel heard at work? Do you think management listens to your concerns? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are saying, of course management listens. Nah, probably not. And, that's why we're doing this show. Do you feel heard at work? My guest today is going to be Russ Hamilton, and we're going to talk about what we can do to elevate one's voice. Now, granted, even if management does provide the opportunity, we also have to be intentional in taking that opportunity. So we're going to kind of discuss what we could do together to elevate the voice of the front line so they can be heard, so they can be part of the change that's happening in corrections. Now, guys, real quick, I want to go over my sponsors. First sponsor we have is American Military University. If you guys get a chance, if you're looking to seek a degree, get higher education, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections and very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. So, guys, if you get a chance, check it out. We also have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. That book is now available, doing very well. Sold 10 copies yesterday, which was pretty cool. It's used for training all across the country. The link to that is in the description. It's on Amazon. And we also have Lessons Learned While Working in a Prison, My Journey from Officer to Administration. I actually may be in the process of having someone else republish the book. I will know more soon. This book is a tremendous book for training, tons of advice and tips. If you haven't picked it up, you should, because this book is like a Bible. There's so much knowledge in here, but I do get an offer to go quickly to another publisher, so I will know soon how that works, hopefully sometime next week. And guys, we do have those Tier Talk webinars available. This one right now is available. It's part one of a 5-part series on leadership. For this one here, we're going to be talking about the first level of leadership, which is about your position, the good and bad about leading from your position. If you guys get a chance, you should check it out. It's $75. It's a webinar that is on demand. So basically, you tell me when you want it, and we'll send it your way. And this is the email. So Tier Talk On Demand webinar is now available. Please email nassahs22@gmail.com for more information. All right, let's get Russ in. What's up, Russ?
Anthony, how's it going, sir?
Good, Russ. What's going on? Mind introducing yourself, my friend?
Well, I would hope everyone would know me, but there may be a few out there.
Well, there's that one, Russ.
There's that one, and the one is the one that I want to be speaking to.
Yes, it's dedicated to the one.
I do kind of feel that way a lot of the times, because I really do want to, provide something where people feel it's on an individual basis with regards to both Tier Talk and Keepers of Chaos. But anyway, my name is Russ Hamilton. I am a former and retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I have also done work as a senior juvenile correctional officer for a local county lockup, or regional lockup, rather. And currently I work for a private company that provides rehabilitation and reentry work with inmates at a local jail, where I'm the case manager, and a local probation department, where I also help out from time to time.
Yes, and how's Keepers?
So Keepers, I had like a little growth spurt, and I'm not even sure where it is right now, but I know I'm getting there. I had a lot of people join in the past 2 or 3 days, up close to 40 or 50, I believe. So we keep the membership there growing. But also in a manner where we want to make sure that we have quality members that really want to get something out of it. They want to further what they can do with regards to their career, to learn something, to find ways to stay safer and be more effective correctional professionals.
That's what it is. And guys, take advantage of these resources, because we didn't have them when we came into this profession. Hey, guys, so lately for my state, I have been appointed as the chairperson of a committee called CEMI, C-E-M-I, the Committee of Employee Morale and Innovation. That's us. There's a group of us. That's just 3 of us. My boy Pat stole the middle of the photo, but I still am the chairperson, even though he's in the middle of the photo. It's just because he wore a suit and we couldn't put him over to the right. Will look awkward. But we got so many people that are dedicated on that committee. That just happens to be 3 of us. And our job right now is to elevate the frontline's voice. It's an initiative that's never been done anywhere. Definitely not in the history of where I've worked. And I've never seen something like this anywhere else. Granted, I could be wrong. But again, this is a committee that's strictly devoted to employee morale. Again, Committee of Employee Morale and Innovation, where we got a lot of events going on, leadership training, just a bunch of stuff. Very busy, but it's good work. It's passionate work. And as I was talking to some of the staff, one of the questions basically is, how do you elevate your voice? I mean, how do one go about doing that? What does the agency have to do to get Frontline to feel that they have the trust to do that? Because that's the key, because it is about trust. But just real quick, it's a good initiative. I love it. We're going to be rolling things out every month. And I just wanted to kind of take some of that energy that I felt over the last couple of days, because we did a few events, and I wanted to kind of push it into a show here, because I just feel good. And I didn't want to sit on that goodness, if you will. So Russ, real quick, Russ, I mean, especially today with corrections changing, and, obviously we are changing in a certain direction. People know it. And the thing at this point right now is there are people that are resistant, but at the end of the day, guys, we're moving with or without you, sad to say. I mean, we just got to stay true to those core values, which is the goal. That's why your voice matters, but it's to take the core values and apply them as we evolve into this next era of where corrections is headed. But I just want, Russ, if you don't mind, how important is it for frontline staff to have their voice heard in correction, especially during times of change?
So, Anthony, I think that if you look at some of the things that you and I have done lately, where we got in there and, we talked about things like leadership and positional leadership and those kinds of things, from the top down, if your people don't feel that they're being heard, or if you are actually not hearing them, there's no way for you to be in any way a leader, except through positional authority, because there's no way you can leverage the hearts and minds of people who feel that they can't be invested in the process, because there's no way for them to communicate anything to you.
Right. And let me, I want to add on that, because that's spot on. Guys, so check this out. So the first thing it is, when it's about having people's voices heard, it's going to be intentional effort. I mean, obviously management's going to have some level of humility. Is that what it is? That's the word I'm looking for, humility. And then you're going to have courage, because it's not easy to speak truth to power. It's not. But having said that, you have to flatten the hierarchy, if that makes sense. Okay. Because here's what happens here is you have the front line. They're going to want to have their voice elevated, but you don't want it to be layered upon layered upon layered and filtered through 20 people before it gets to the person that needs to hear it, because it's too much changes from that original message. So the first thing that you have to do when you want to elevate staff's voice is that you have to flatten the hierarchy. You have to flatten the obstacles that will prevent the truth or an unfiltered message getting to those in power who have the position to influence change. So, Russ, does that make sense as a first step? If we're looking to elevate the voice of staff, that management or the higher executive staff have to find a way to kind of flatten the hierarchy?
Yeah, I think you have to work at flattening that hierarchical curve or hill or whatever you want to call it. At the same time, because of the way things are, we still have to, in some ways, maintain the chain of command. So I think that what really is needed is there has to be tools to accomplish this. And so when we start talking about, well, what are the tools that we could use to accomplish this? And those are things, like perhaps, forming committees, being able to, have meetings where people feel free to speak their mind. and a way to, install some sort of communicative conduit from the base all the way through to the top. And that's what I think that we need to seek out, and we need to try and find a way to put those things in. Those people at the top, if they're not interested in those things, like I said, again, then they're leading by position, and they'll never be able to win the hearts and minds.
Yeah, and I like what you said, because that's the truth. I mean, it's kind of what I'm dealing with now. I mean, you gotta have a committee, but it's got to be a committee that you can trust, because when the concerns come your way, some concerns are going to be general, some concerns are going to be very specific. And you have to protect the integrity of those concerns. So, I mean, you're going to do surveys, of course, and that can get a lot of generalized information. But you're also going to put, let's say, boxes up that allow for direct communication to be passed to the committee, to be passed higher up. Now, that's the information that you have to protect. Like that's a box that not everybody should have access to, because sad to say, and then it's just speaking in general, is I think, in my opinion, if I want to look at fixing the culture of corrections, let's say at the facilities I'm at now, or let's just say in general, it's what me and Russ do. We've tried to always do videos that help fix the culture. I think there's obviously two approaches. We know it's top down, and we also know there has to be a bottom up. There's a meet in the middle, but you have to go top down first. I don't think it's a bottom up initiative right away. I think it's top down. Let leadership see what you got going on. Let them see what you're trying to implement. Build secure leaders so they're willing to listen to those concerns without any feeling of being threatened or insecure, because that's another issue. But I would think first, Russ, is I'm going to set the platform first by working top down. Would you agree that would be the first step when you want to elevate a voice, is make sure that you have buy-in from the top down, or create the buy-in?
Yeah, it has to work that way. There's no other way to do it. Otherwise, you're going to, you're going to end up relying on the people down in the trenches to, set the tone, make the policies, and try and, polish every single turd that comes down the pike. And they don't have the wherewithal to do that, because they, as good at leaders as they may be, in the end, they don't have that position to be able to sort everything out.
Right. And guys, as I said, as we try to create this initiative, the one thing is you're creating a culture. You're creating something that is long lasting. So having said that, the best way to really kickstart momentum is by really going top down, because that's where the influence is going to be, because that's always going to be the key. Is if we're going to create a culture, it's something that we have to keep fueling, keep moving forward. And it really does start, in my mind, the first thing I want is I'm looking for trust. I think trust is paramount when it comes to elevating people's voices. You need trust, and you need some level of vulnerability from the higher level, because obviously if we're looking to change the environment, you're going to have leaders that are willing to look at themselves first to say, hey, you know what, if we're looking to change, what is it that I can do better? And there's a lot of leaders that aren't willing to do that. See, that's where the concern is. So you have to try to work with those leaders, let them understand the initiative, what you're trying to do, that you're not trying to circumvent them. You're not trying to, yes, certainly. You're not trying to go around them. You're not trying to question them as leaders. You actually need them on your side as well. But with that said, the trust has to come from the leadership accepting this to happen, because if you don't get the trust from the leadership, you have obstacles in your way that, to me, is going to prevent your initiative. Would you agree with that, Russ, that you got to get the buy-in, or you got to create the buy-in, right? We said that, right?
Yeah. Those are just things that have to be there. What we really want to see start happening, and the things that, I'm hoping that we're, planting seeds for in certain areas, are to get those people, from the bottom, to start raising through the ranks to the top, to be disruptive forces, to shake up the status quo, because too often, we just end up getting, stagnation, and everything stays the same. And it's hard to point at very many, bright, shining examples and corrections where people change things. Now, I hope that's not, generalizing too much, but it tends to kind of be an overall truth. So we want those people that are at the bottom to matriculate upwards and to become disruptive forces, and to start listening to those people that are further down the chain, the people that feel, disempowered, disenfranchised, and do those things like you're speaking about, to forward communication upwards that can be acted on, and acted on swiftly. Not something that's, hey, that's a great idea. In 10 years, we're going to make sure that we have this fully implemented. So, I hope that there's some sea change out there where people are starting to see the necessity of moving from the bottom to the top.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's innovation. I mean, as we grow, the best innovation is going to come from the front line, because they're doing the job every day. I mean, they're the ones that, they're solving problems that we don't even know exist, and the key with that behind it all, guys, is that when it comes to the leadership and building trust, the leaders have to know that that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to build an agency that can move us into the next era of corrections. And the funny thing is, there is a partnership too, because you want to get the people when they're coming in, of course, the academy and whatnot, but you also want to be able to create the culture that's kind of being taught. Because the funny thing is you could try to get them from day one, but then when they get into the facility, if the culture is like more resistant and kind of a little bit old fashioned, the problem is eventually the person that's coming in, the new boot, is going to wind up shifting to where that dynamic is at that facility, the way it is, because that's you would. I mean, you don't want to be isolated on day one. So you get an understanding what the academy is trying to get at you. Yeah, I get it. But then when you get to the facility's doing things differently. And, it's a lot easier to conform. Or, I mean, very rarely are you going to find people that stay true and try to keep with that original mindset. A majority of people will get to that facility, and how that facility operates, if it's 180 from the academy, they'll sense a bit of conflict, and then they're going to have to make a decision of which way they want to go. And most likely they're going to take the road to conform, because it's an easier road. And don't forget, guys, they're at the beginning of their career. They're vulnerable. So it's easier for them to kind of go with the flow than challenge a system that they're still trying to figure out. So again, we're talking about creating a culture. And Russ, would you agree with that? Russ, that the transition from day one into the facility, how it could be a bit of a conflict if you're trying to push a message, at day one, and then when they get introduced into the facility, the resistance could wind up eliminating everything that you've put in to this individual from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. I speak often about, what the culture is versus what the culture should be, and where we need to go to try and instill those things, from both directions, from the bottom up and the top down. Not talking about the communication aspects here, but just, what is it that a correctional professional should be? What is the ideal philosophy for them to take in, which is something that's a little bit different from necessarily from the skill sets that they might have. We all need a common philosophy. And I think that's one of the things that we've gotten away from. I was just dealing with things over the past couple of days in a couple of different forums, with people just, talking about it being okay to haze other people and to step on their toes and to do things that are antithetical to a professional ethos and a professional culture and a professional environment. And so I think what we all need, which would be ideal, although not likely, is to have, this common thread that runs through what it is that we do, in order to make us all accountable in the same ways. And I think that that's something that's sorely lacking. We all need to pay more attention to what it is that our oath says, in my opinion.
No, I agree. As I said, even when we're looking to elevate voices, it still always connects to the core values. I'm never going to ship that change. I mean, I like to say evolve, because evolve actually maintains the core values and we grow from that. Some people may embrace the word change. I'm not a big fan, because I think change makes people a little bit more resistant. But having said that, the core values are what we're going from to make ourselves better. And I want to mention something else too. Obstacle to having your voice heard. Remember, I said about leadership, you want to create the environment. Are positional leaders too. That's a very big obstacle in creating an environment in which people feel valued and people feel heard. Because granted, I get there are times during emergency situations where you may have to play the position, but that's not all the time. I actually think it's a lot less than people may think it is. When you have people that are positional leaders and they're always quick to point to their position, even if there's always just a simple dialogue that you're trying to have with them or a concern you're trying to express, when you quickly shut them down because you're here on the hierarchy and they're there, it makes them feel inferior. It makes them feel that they have no value. And next thing you know is that those people just stop saying things. It's like, you know what? It's not even worth it, because, every time I go to say something, the person just, time out. I'm the boss, and that's it. It's like that. That's not beneficial to a culture that's trying to lift the voice of the individuals from the front line. So, I mean, Russ, would you agree a good antagonist to a culture where you want to work with the front line and give them a voice is someone that stays the position, and that's how they rule by, that's how they lead by?
Yeah, we've all seen those people that they fall back on their position, or they fall back on what they're used to doing. Those people, I've referred to in the past as being, the one trick ponies. If your only go-to play is saying, "Hey, I've got the brass," then where is the effort to innovate? Where is the effort to think outside the box? Where is the effort to elevate those people that are below you to take over responsibility and to be able to lead the charge forward when you're always resorting to whatever's laying there on your collar at the moment? Those people don't have any reason to try and move in to the mantle of authority that they've been given by the penal code, which says that they're correctional officers or correctional deputies or whatever it is. Instead, they shirk back from that responsibility and they don't fulfill the role that they've been assigned.
Yeah, and what's funny is when you go to do something to lift someone's voice and someone plays the position and pushes it down, it can be very frustrating. I mean, at least when you're trying to create a culture where people's voice has value, and then you wind up surrounding them next to people who are positional, and every time the person goes to say something, they just keep on pushing those words down. Now, granted, when it comes to lifting up staff's voice, when it comes to creating a movement like this, timing matters too. We talked about trust. Trust is tough. Trust is tough to build. It takes time. And you could do a good movement or have the intentions to do a good movement, but if the timing is wrong, people look at the motive, question it, and you never get the momentum and you never get the trust, and it never moves anywhere. So you have to make sure that the timing is right. You cannot push an initiative to lift staff's voice in an environment that has not a good relationship with management and with frontline. If you have a rocky relationship between both parties and it's obviously rocky, there's no trust, and all of a sudden you're going to come in and say, well, I'm going to implement this, the front line and management will not buy in, and you're going to see it. There has to be a timing where you have to introduce an effort, and it's slow moving. I mean, it's an effort to get somewhere, whether you do or not. I mean, it's tough. It's something that you work on every day. But once you start making progress in that right direction and people start feeling value and leadership starts kind of accepting what's going on, then you could start really making those initiatives where, we really could dive in deep to what it is about the culture that's just not working. Because the biggest concern I have is that when there's no trust, management will, of course, question the efforts because they could think it's an attack on them. Remember, guys, you're lifting up frontline voices. So most of their concerns are going to be about the people they directly work for. Trust me. I mean, that has to be expected to come that way. So you have to be a secure leader and understand that people are going to be talking about you. It's the nature of the beast. Now, if you got this us versus them mentality with frontline and management, the management's not going to be open. Instead of them looking to grow and take the advice and see where they can move forward with it, they're going to be in defensive mode and they're going to question everything that's being said. They're not going to buy in. And now the problem is you have a culture where you have the leadership just pushing back because they feel it's a win-loss. As for the front line has to understand that you can't be outcome driven. It's effort. I don't have the power, even though you may think as a leader, I have the power to make things happen. Most of the time, I just have a voice. That's all I have. Same as yours. It's just I'm closer to the people that have greater influence. That's all it is. It's just I'm put in a position which gets me a little bit closer to the people that have influence. So here I am. I have a voice. And I think when it comes to elevating the voice, what we're trying to do is bring the people on our level, because they're the ones that can communicate that knowledge in that specific level to those people at the higher level. But with that said, for frontline, I think frontline has to realize that effort matters more than outcome. It's true, guys. Effort matters more than outcome. Because at the end of the day, guys, the people that provide the effort, those are the ones, regardless of what the outcomes are, those are the ones you want to have on your side because they're the ones that are fighting for you. But if you sit there and wait for the outcome and then you judge management based on outcomes that they don't control and minimize their efforts, there's animosity there. So I think there has to be a level of understanding from leadership in regards to this is not about you. Don't be insecure. Stuff's going to come your way. We're going to try to address it, but work with us. And for frontline, when you go to lift up those concerns, be reasonable. Look at things that you believe are within our control, because whatever advice you're giving to move up, we want to make it actionable. We don't want stuff that's, the usual stuff. Yeah, I get, guys, we want greater pay and stuff like that, but some of us don't have control of that. So we want to have a better working environment. That's what committees like this is for. When we know everybody wants better pay, but when you're doing a committee where you want staff's voice heard, it's usually focused around creating a better working environment. What's your thoughts? A lot there, Russ. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that that the people down there in the trenches, should be looking to see what are the things that can, truly be moved forward in a play like that. Things like pay tend to be out of the range. Those tend to be things that are either bargained for, negotiated, or talked about in various committees in the county you're in, especially if we're talking about the jails and things like that. If we want to make things, really effective, there's just some things that you're not going to be able to address, and you should not be trying to move the chains on those issues. You should be looking at the things that you really can truly affect. A lot of times we see things that really could stand a chance at being affected, especially as I look across at the kind of the beefs that different people have with regards to, what is it that what training is not being offered, what equipment is not being offered, and the whys behind all of that. And so, I think just, little bites, little things that we can get, little things that we can agree on to start, grow trust, and then move on toward the bigger things. But some of those larger items, are just out of range of administration, out of the range of what management does.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the small victories because that's what's going to give you the serious momentum. I mean, I mean, granted, there's going to be a lot of individualized concerns. I get it, but I think for the long run, when you look at a concern and you're looking to bring it up, the people that review those concerns to put some value behind those words so we can commit to something actionable is they're going to want to see the potential of that concern affecting the community of workers. Because there are some individualized concerns that, if you let play out too long, yeah, that could affect everybody in the workplace. Or there are some that's strictly just individual. And it's like, you know what? We may have to put that on the back burner for now, because right now there's other concerns here that really deal with the community of workers as a whole. And I think when it comes to your voice counts, I think there are some individualized concerns, but for the most part, we're looking to move a workforce community together to unite. So you're always going to look for the concerns that are affecting the most amount of workers, if that makes sense, because those are the concerns that really should take priority. Now, granted, yes, there are times for those individualized concerns, because I've seen individualized concerns where I'm thinking like, you know what? We got to act on that, because if we don't, there's a Pandora's box here that's really going to affect everybody as a whole. So ultimately, the bigger picture is going to be, who's going to be affected by this if we do this or if we don't do it. But I think when it comes to elevating that voice, you are going to kind of look to see what's affecting your community. What is the things that are coming your way that seem to be repetitive? Like what is, no matter where you go, what are the concerns? And what's funny is, at first, because every facility has a different dynamic, guys. So when you decide to implement something like this, every facility has a different dynamic, right? But when you do something, like let's say at each facility, you do like a survey or something, you get the generalized concerns. That's enough for you then to go back and begin with the generalized concerns to draw out the specifics of that facility. But you're going to want to take a look at what are we really suffering as an agency, but then also what is each facility suffering from, because each facility has its own culture, its own dynamic. Don't think that, every facility has the same concerns, because they all have different leaderships. As much as we want to think that every policy puts us together and we all operate the same way, no, we have different leaders who interpret things differently and they run their ships differently. If you ever notice, guys, the reflection of the house you work in is usually a reflection of your highest person on top. And it's the truth. If you look at some of the dynamics of some of the characteristics of a culture of a facility, the first thing you want to look at is the leader. And I'll guarantee you, if you get an understanding of that leader, you're going to be able to look at that facility and say, okay, I get it. I see where it runs parallel. But having said that, you got to understand that when it comes to lifting people's voices, there's two things. There's what's going to benefit the agency as a whole, but then there's also going to be what's going to benefit the facility at a more specific level. I mean, would you agree with that, Russ?
Absolutely. And, one thing that I wanted to try and stress in this too is when we on the lower end, because I kind of still consider myself one of y'all down there in the trenches, we need to make the message that we send palatable to people. There is a tendency for us to always act and be at war with upper management, and that's not conducive to a solution-oriented framework. We need to be able to say things in a manner that's heard well, respected, understood, rather than something that's challenging, derogatory, and ultimately is just going to throw more acid onto the situation as it is.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt to sit around with your peers when you're starting to voice those concerns too. Like, sit around with your peers, document stuff as a team and send it out collectively where in which everybody's in agreement. So we're all working off the same thing. I think that would be great if there would be a way where, hey, they're doing this initiative. Hey, how about a few of us sit down together and let's really jot down some of our concerns and send something up collectively, as a team. I think that's also a good idea because, again, that pushes away from the individualized and really starts focusing on the community. I don't think I want to mention something too, guys. It's not an easy effort because it's funny because when you're in a higher position, I mean the highest position, let's just say, no matter how much you want to be personable, which is always a good thing because we do want personable leaders, people are going to see your position. It is what it is. As you move up, the harder it is for you to get the truth from people. Trust me. Because at the end of the day, people get so concerned about the position that they're very concerned about speaking their mind. That's why as leaders in the highest positions, you have to let other people talk first. Because if you talk first, whatever you say could be an order, could be a directive, because you're the person in charge. Or when you suggest an idea and you're first, everybody will bias that idea towards yours. Because again, you're the leader, and it takes a lot of courage to speak truth to power. And I've seen people that I've worked with, that high-level leaders, they surround themselves with good people, and they make sure in the office, when they're all around, that they don't use titles. Hey, Russ. Hey, Ant. Hey, Jim. Hey, Joe. They do that because at the end of the day, the people that are closest to them, they want to have a good rapport with them because they want to have honest dialogue. And the last thing they want to do at that highest level is throw positions, because then what's going to happen is they get surrounded by people that are yes sirs or yes ma'ams. And it's like, hey, guys, I'm not pushing my title here. So I expect honesty. If there's something you don't like that I'm doing, you need to tell me, because I don't want to be going down the wrong way. Like I think there's something in a book I read where it says that you want a yes person when it comes to the systems that you're trying to operate and implement, but you want to also have a no person who will tell you when, yeah, I get what you're doing and I love it, but you can't do it this way. If that makes sense. So you want the yes person to help you connect to the highest level of your vision. This is what I'm trying to get to. Who's supporting it? And you get the people to support that higher level movement. But you also want people that in support of that vision will tell you the truth in regards to if you're getting there or not. So you want the yes and the no at the lower level. Does that make sense for us?
Oh, absolutely. Some of the things that we see, and I probably can speak best from my perspective, being here in California, where I've seen a real erosion because of the politics here of things being all carrot now and no stick whatsoever. And it's kind of disingenuous to think that we're going to get really good results with regards to doing reentry, rehabilitation, when we absolutely have no way to hold these people accountable. So that's just one of the things that I see, kind of in the little example that you gave there, where we need to be able to say, "Hey, wait a minute. I know that it's maybe not popular to do discipline. Maybe it's not popular to hand out longer sentences. Maybe it's not popular to have gang enhancements or firearm enhancements, within a state. Yet that's the thing that actually gets results. So if we take and transfer like what would be happening here in California to the things that we deal with on the line level, we should know that, we need a framework that we can work within, and that we have to be able to, tell people and be honest with them about, hey, you know what, this idea about, unicorns and cotton candy for the inmates is a bad idea.
Yeah, it's funny, Russ. I think part of the your voice count, the movements that try to elevate someone's voice, I think it's more about I know what it is that we want to accomplish, what we need to accomplish, but I need your help to get me there. You know what I mean? So basically, it's building alignment with what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So I guess the core principles of where the agency is trying to go, and then being vulnerable enough to go back to the front line and saying, hey, is this possible? And how do we get there? You know, I think the biggest concern we have right now is we work in a system that we have cynical people. It is what it is. Not a bunch, not a lot as many people may think, but we do. And I find that there's this 25, 50, 25. 25% are going to be resistant no matter what. It just is what it is. They're comfortable. They don't want to change. They misunderstand what's happening. There's no effort in them to shift from where they are now to where they need to be. Then there's 50% that are on the fence. You know, the 50% that kind of trying to figure out which way the department's going, what works for them. You know, they're not against it. They just haven't really solidified their position. And then there's 25% who buy in. There's 25% that get it. They buy in and they're moving forward. Our job as leaders is to give a platform to that 25%. The 25% that are moving in that right direction, the 25% that get it, you give them a platform in the effort to convince the 50% to cross over. The problem with a lot of people when it comes to making initiatives where your voice counts, stuff like that, is that they try to hit the masses before they have momentum. So they try to get everyone when it's like, hey, dude, we haven't even had a small victory yet. Like, you can't talk to the masses because right now the people that have the power is that lower 25% that are resistant. So if you go ahead without a victory and start preaching all this shit you're going to do and expect buy-in, you're going to lose. We haven't won anything. So you can't do that. You can't push for that. What you have to do is you have to focus your energy as much as you can on that other 25%, that 25% that's got the buy-in. Don't worry about, there's going to be people, and Russ, you know this, no matter how much you push a good message, they don't buy in. It's just who they are. And you're going to wind up spending so much energy on that 25%. It becomes a win-loss, to be honest with you, because you're not even persuading them. This is now we're battling, and I'm not going to lose. And, you know, you don't want to lose, and you go nowhere. You go absolutely nowhere. What you do is you focus your energy on where it matters. You focus your energy on where you have the momentum already there. It's in the 25% that are following it. You focus your energy on that in the efforts to move the 50%, the other 50%. And here's what works with that. Once you get your energy in the right place and you're able to use the platform to heighten the 25 to convince the 50, the other 25 that's resistant, I'm not saying they buy in. But they're forced to move. They can't stand. They got to move because the world's moving now. There's a lot there, Russ. You're muted, by the way. Yeah. What's your thoughts? Would you agree the 25, 50, 25?
Yeah. You know, I love the tactic there. I love, you know, the thought of having administrators and managers be that intentional with a game plan in order to try and prove to people first that there's a potential for this thing to move forward. And then from that point, to go ahead and execute the plan and put it into motion in a way that people are going to take it to heart and are going to implement it at whatever their level is. I think that's a fantastic, you know, strategy or really tactic to try and use. Even if you didn't use that tactic specifically, if you are a manager or an administrator who has that level of intentionality about the way you're moving the pieces on the board, you will have people follow you naturally and get that buy-in anyway.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Because hold on, Russ, you just hit a very good point. The credibility of the messenger matters when it comes to change. So, Again, that comes with timing too as well. But you're right. You want to do initiative where your voice counts. You got to have people that have influence. You got to, and that's part of the 25% buy-in. Believe it or not, that's part of the first 25% that you're going to try to go ahead and influence them to push the 50%. Because I'll be honest with you, when you're doing a movement like this, my main focus is that 50%. And my main focus is that 50%. How can I get the straddlers, whatever it is? I want those because it's like, the votes, these people here, they got you. I mean, yeah, they're with us. They're on the fence. The reason why I went to focus on them because I don't want them going here. I don't want them going to the other side and without creating small victories, because that's another thing, guys, when it comes to doing an initiative like Your Voice Counts, stuff where you're elevating staff's voice, you have to be able to get actionable things that you can claim as victories so you can go against those who are going to be resistant. Because if you're just talk and there's nothing you can produce, then you're not moving and you're not taking, and even if you were, no one's following you because you haven't committed to anything that can be seen. I mean, this really is going beyond words. I mean, you literally have to, once you start implementing something where there's a chance for people's voices to be elevated, they're waiting for action. They're waiting, and the longer it takes to commit to an action, you start to lose buy-in. Because here's another thing about a movement like this. A movement like this should increase participation as you progress forward, not decrease. So when you start this, it runs a little slow, but then it starts increasing because action is now being seen. And now people are like, oh, I'm going to try. And then all of a sudden it increases. But if you're moving and it's decreasing and it's slowing down, it's because guess what, guys? Your movement has no credibility, because every time someone has made a concern, what have you committed to action? So those small victories will build enough credibility for people to invest into what it is that you're trying to push, right? Right, Russ? The victories and something actionable matters.
Yeah, people at the top with real true gravitas are always going to be better at pulling that off, regardless of what extra framework is being put in there. I mean, I love the fact that they're being intentional with this and putting it in there. I think it points to, at some levels, a lack of interest of doing it, though, in that it has to be done in this fashion. But that doesn't mean I don't think it's great. I just think that we have a lot of people in corrections who aren't interested in fixing things.
Yeah, and then the funny thing is, you're right. And the funny thing is, their lack of interest will wind up blaming the people that are trying to do it, which is the funny thing. Like, I'm not interested, but instead of them telling you that they're not interested, like, well, that thing's not going to work anyway. Okay, so you're not going to try? Why? It's not going to work. So you're not going to try. Because you're not trying is why. If it doesn't work, it's because you're not trying. I mean, it's like this catch-22. Like, you're going to fail, but I'm not going to provide any effort to help it, but that's on you. No, guys, let me tell you something right now. When it comes to elevating voices, when it comes to creating a culture of a workplace that you want to be in, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. If you finally in the right position where you got people that care and they're taking the initiative, and then all of a sudden you're so disgruntled that, you'd rather be miserable than hell. What the hell? What's the worst that can happen out of this? The workplace doesn't get better. I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to give it 100%. That's great. Now we're partnered together. We can figure this out. But if you're going to knock the attempt, because you'd rather be miserable. And then the sad thing is when it fails, it's like, yep, I told you that was going to fail. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That to me, and it kind of, it irks me a little bit. I remember a scenario a while back of a story. Let's just say a story where I had a manager, let's just say, from what I was told, that not a lot of people liked. And what happened was, instead of them supporting the manager, they wanted the manager to fail. But now the problem is, that's if you're not supporting your manager, whether you like them or not, the sad thing is when that person fails, you can't just put that on the manager. At the end of the day, our job, it's sad to say, our job is to help each other be as successful as we can be. That's the key. So if someone comes in as a failure, or you think that they're a failure, and you're like, well, I'm not going to bother helping them, and you just watch them fail, to me, I wouldn't be able to do that, whether I liked you or not. I wouldn't be able to do that because that's not in me. And plus, the outcome of a failure is never going to just be that person failing. It's going to affect a Pandora's box. It's going to open up a lot of other shit where other people are going to wind up getting swept up in that. Same thing with this. If you start a momentum and you're starting a movement where people have a voice, and then, it's something positive, and then you get this one person who doesn't want to participate. So in the back of their mind, they want it to fail, because think about it. They don't want to participate, right? And the reason why they want it to fail is because since they're not participating, they want to show that they were right, that this wouldn't work anyway. So think about the mindset of that individual who says, okay, there's this great attempt to help employee morale, but because I'm so disgruntled over management from 20 years ago, that I'm not even going to give this an attempt. And when it fails, they'll be like, I told you so. You told us so? You never even made the effort. I know you're disgruntled, but at the end of the day, anytime there was an initiative to create something better, I know some people may want to question the motive, and I get it, but at the end of the day, is there a chance that it could create something better? And if there is the chance, sometimes the chance is worth it. It's worth it. And for me, I remember William Young told a story about a pizza party, and that you could do whatever. You can offer officers $1 million, but if they don't like the management, they go right to question the motives. And I get that. And we talked about that a little bit at the beginning. I get that. I understand that. That's why I said timing. But granted, I think, like Russ said, there are some people that don't want it to succeed. And this has nothing to do with timing. They just don't want something like that to succeed because they've gotten so used to having those I told you so moments and just being miserable, and they just don't want to give anything the effort that could be positive for whatever reason it is. And then when something fails, they'll be quick to blame everybody else around them, when people will go back and say, dude, you haven't even participated. So you haven't even given it a chance. You just want it to fail right from the get-go. And to me, that gets me upset, because at the end of the day, Russ, if there's an effort to try something and there's just a chance of hope, something on the other end, give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? Honestly, what's the worst that can happen? I just think that people just, they want that win. They don't want, they're so anti-establishment, yet they work for, and listen, I get there are going to be some people that hate people that they work for. And then they translate into that hating what they do, which is you hate a supervisor because they're an asshole. And now because that supervisor is an asshole, I no longer believe that my work has any value. No, don't let a supervisor do that. That's the supervisor. Don't translate that into how you see the work that you do, because a bad supervisor has nothing when it comes to the value behind your work. It just doesn't make any sense to get mad at a supervisor and then turn that into something of an anti-establishment where you don't want to work for the agency anymore because of the one supervisor. And my biggest concern is you have people that have learned to generalize hate towards management. Hear me out. It does go both ways, but just for this segment here, this section, they've generalized hate towards management, that even if management does have a good effort, their generalized hatred is going to want to see management fail. They're not going to want to see management succeed. They're not going to want to partake because they've been miserable. And the problem is, and for the people that are like that, listen to me, the only people that in the end will wind up suffering from that loss are the people we're trying to help, which is your peers. Sorry. That's just my opinion. Russ, what's your thoughts on that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it always comes back to that point of what is it that you want to do as a corrections professional? For me, it's I've had a deep, abiding desire to help those that are coming through the field, and it almost never fails that at least once or twice a month, sometimes maybe more. That people rather than want to see somebody helped, will do everything that they can to sabotage somebody. And they're just, these naysayers, these haters, these people that just, want to, make sure that everyone is as miserable as they are. And that's one of the reasons that, that I founded Keepers of Chaos is to bring a level that we could talk about the things that we need to do from a professional standpoint to bear, and to be able to give people great ideas and great hope and great training and knowledge, and share it across a platform rather than just sit there and try and find a way to make everything cave in, as it were. So and that's the reason that I come on here and do things on Tier Talk, is I want to try and carry the fire and share the word. So if everyone out there were to just try and help the brother next to them, try and help their boss that's above them, and feel like that they have some genuine input with regards to direction and trajectory of even their local institution, I think that people could have a higher degree of hope in getting some of the things that they truly want out of this career.
I love that. And remember, guys, I mean, you can't elevate someone's voice in an environment where it's us versus them. I think when it comes to the us versus them mentality, we all should be playing a part to get rid of that shit. I mean, on any level, just straight up on any level. Every day we should do whatever we can not to carry out generalized animosity, because my problem with Russ now becomes a problem with all supervisors because Russ is just a bad supervisor. Or my problem with Gangi becomes a problem with all officers because Gangi's a shit officer. No, let's be adults. Let's deal with each other, hold each other accountable, and then just try to keep that momentum going of a good facility where we can interact, grow together, learn from each other, and bring that to the highest level. Because, guys, before we come to a close, guys, you're not going to find a lot of people in higher level positions that want to hear your voice. You don't. I think some people believe that leaders know everything, and that's not the case. I mean, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I mean, the key here, guys, is that when you have a leader who literally says, I want to hear what my frontline has to say, then we scramble and when we do what we can to elevate that voice. I don't care what the effort is. We put it in 100%. And then for leaders who are entering into an environment in which you want to initiate elevating frontline, but you're working in an environment where they never had that before. They had the extreme opposite of that, where they weren't allowed to speak and they were held down. Then you have to make yourself present more, walk around the units, talk to the people, let them see you, not the title. Because when I know that some of us fear the title because we've worked with people who held it in the wrong way. And that title will be that reminder of how that person made me feel. So, I just don't want to talk to a high level like that because everybody I've known that had that title treated me like shit. So now you're wearing a title that has a bad reputation. So now what do? You got to walk back into the field, talk to your people, and let you create the title now. Because think about it. It's like you're wearing someone else's jacket when you take that title over. If they wore that title with disregard and negligence and just, I didn't care about how my people were, then now you put that title on, you're going to get people looking at you at the same way until you're able to convince them that, yeah, I may have that title, but that's not who I am. And I think that's extremely powerful to start an initiative in an environment that had the extreme opposite. You know, you want my voice to be heard, but for 20 years, I was shut down because of these people. I get you. But I'm not that person. I have the title, but come up to my office. Let's chat. Whoa, no one's ever done that before, and create the new legacy for that title. Because that's what it is, Russ. I mean, Russ, think about that, Russ. We always talk about the one thing that you have that always precedes you is your reputation, right? But guess what else, Russ? Guess what else does? Our titles, especially when the titles are less, like not that many people stand at that highest level. So it's easy for me to pinpoint one person I don't like at that highest level title because it's one person. So now you're wearing the reputation of some bad people who wore it. You have to do what you can at that point to clean it up and build the trust in that title. And the best way to do it is be present as a person first. Let them see that and see the title secondary. What's your thoughts on that? We never discussed that before. You're muted, Russ.
Sorry about that.
That's right.
Yeah, you know, it is. It's as you get toward the top of the pyramid, there are fewer figures, and it's easier to identify something about someone you don't like. Maybe you worked with them at one point. Maybe you know, it's just their general reputation is bad, and you take it as gospel without actually ever having any interaction. Yeah. So that's the thing that we have to work on to try and make sure that we're not introducing an element of bias to this process. If we want to start things like this that Anthony's brought to the forefront about what he's involved in, there has to be a willingness for us to, you know, drop some of that initial animosity and try and establish some trust and figure out what that dialogue is going to look like. I'm hopeful in things like this. I think that the more things that we do and the more that we can spread the word, there'll be someone watching this, no doubt, who will take this and carry it to fruition in whatever department that they're in. I think a lot of times people don't realize just how vast the correctional network is. Just because, you know, I'm in California and Anthony's out there on the East Coast, think about those, 4,000 different counties in between at the jail level and those 50 states, each with, maybe 1, 2, a dozen, 30, 40 prisons. There's a lot of work that we can do and that we can help with by getting the word out there. And I don't think that there's, any correctional platform out there better at doing this than Tier Talk.
That's pretty cool. I mean, think about, Russ, the dialogue and how we dove in deep and, just in the process, just allow the dialogue to guide us. We listen to each other, we build off each other, and it's creative because at the end of the day, we don't really know where the dialogue is going to go. We're just two professionals sharing our experiences and, going into territories no one's ever gone before. I mean, I would like to maybe do a show again, maybe this week about what we just mentioned about, maybe being given a title that has a bad reputation. I've seen people that, you know what it is real quick. It's the bad reputation connected to generalized animosity. I hate all supervisors because I have a problem with Russ. And then now, let's say I decide to become a supervisor. Now I have that negative aspect of being a supervisor because, how Russ was. and then it's like, well, I'm going to be different. Well, how do you showcase that? How do you let people know that you're different than how Russ managed? I that's pretty unique. If you want to create a culture where, you're coming from an environment that is extreme, on the opposite end of what you're trying to do, how do you get buy-in? How do you get buy-in when you're coming from a culture where everybody told those frontline people to shut up, told the knowledge workers, we don't care about anything you say. And then all of a sudden you come in and it's your first day and you want it. Well, I want to hear what they have to say. They're not going to speak. And it's not against you. It's everybody that had the title before you and how they treated them, if that makes sense. Hey, Rush, you have anything you'd like to say in closing, sir?
All that I want to say is that only effort is going to yield results in this. So, people, if you have the chance to do either something like this, or even if it's just as simple as trying to open up the dialogue, if you're an administrator out there, a manager, whatever, do that intentionality with regards to try and open those floodgates of those conduits, those channels, and see where that takes you. There are some people that really, truly, deeply understand where corrections is and what corrections needs. And they're not all up there in Mahogany Row. A lot of those people that really, truly understand these things, they're the ones down there in the trenches. They're the ones that truly see what things are truly needed. And if you would tap that immense potential, instead of ending up as, just an associate warden or a warden, maybe you'll end up making, director or something like that. So just fuel for thought, as it were.
Oh, that's, Russ, everything we do from Tier Talk, even the stuff I'm doing now with my department, now that I've gotten closer to the end of my career, this is more about legacy. Going back, looking at the moments that mattered. I think that as you get closer to the horizon, right before you get to retire, it's, moving up. None of that stuff really matters anymore because you start seeing your career coming to an end and you start looking backwards as opposed to looking forwards. You start to look at where the impact was as opposed to where you could be. I'm going to be home, so I'm looking backwards to see where I've created the most impact. I think this is a great opportunity. What I'm doing now is the best opportunity I could ever have in the course of my last 4 years or 5 years to really do something and create more. You're always going to create momentum. You're never going to finish it, by the way. So be aware of that. But you want to hear something funny, Russ? Over a decade ago, I created Tier Talk. And it's kind of like a full circle here because since day one, when I created Tier Talk about 11, 12 years ago, my slogan always was, let our voices be heard. So it's full circle to be able to, maybe complete the legacy here, find value. Because Russ, one last thing before you go, Russ, do you agree that before you retired, when your career was coming to end, you spent more time looking backwards to figure out where your impact was?
I did. I was concerned that, all of the plays that I made and the fun things that I did and the dangerous situations that I put myself into, and even the people that I was able to affect and teach and show them some of the things that I was able to do. I thought that I was going to have had a pretty nice impact, but it was going to be very localized and very specific, and that would be that. And I was fine with that because I feel like I acquitted myself very well working under very difficult situations. And I felt good about that. And then as I went on Tier Talk for the first time, and then I started Keepers of Chaos. And then I went from that to back into the system a little bit in a far more limited way. I started to think that, my chances of actually making a big impact have been exponentially increased. It's one of those things where I also know that, I may not see what that final thing looks like just because sometimes you're not always, necessarily recognized or rewarded for it. But that's okay with me too. I got into this thing the way that I did it, wanting to, help each and every, officer, professional, anything to do with corrections, and help them because it's so damn hard. It's so damn dangerous, and just the things that we face, all the way from the cynicism of our own peers to potentially, some not so good things about some administrators, to being come at with intent to kill you by the inmates, as it were. Sometimes doing all of that takes a special breed of person, and so I wanted to give back to those people that are of that special breed, and I just always felt that I wasn't ever quite done yet. I feel like there's no point at which you can ever stop sharpening the knife. You should always be honing things, always learning things, and always looking to impact people. And at this late stage in my long life now, I want to be able to reach back and help people along.
And Russ, I mean, obviously in the grand scheme of all YouTube channels, but I hit over 3 million views. So I mean, you're a big piece of those 3 million views. So 3 million views is not too shabby for a niche. It's not 3 million views on my channel is not too shabby. So you're right. You're not going to know the direct impact, but it's there. I mean, a lot of people, shit, you don't find out how powerful they were until they're long dead. You know what I mean? I'm not being more. It's the truth.
No, to me, it's not. To me, it's not morbid. It's just the nature. It's the nature of things, and I accept that. I hope that I hope something that I've taught along the way has saved someone's life. I hope something that I've taught along the way has keyed people in to the mindset that they need to have to keep them safe. I hope that something that I've taught someone has helped them matriculate from being a line staff officer to being a better leader, and maybe even a warden or something like that. And with 3 million views, there's a high degree of likelihood that something somewhere along the way was taken to heart by someone.
3 million views, 1,300 almost over 1,300 videos. And you know what was good about doing Tier Talk, to be honest with you guys, not just creating a platform that allows you to speak, but I also, in order for me to keep this platform going for 12 years and not be redundant, because even after 11, 12 years, we still talk about topics we never discussed before. Whether we get to the tactical side, the strategic side, the leadership side. I mean, it's crazy. After 1,300 something videos, 11, 12 years later, how we could still find new topics. But the reason why we're doing this is because we still grow. I think one of the best things that this channel's ever given me was the fact that I myself have grown through listening to you guys on the show. 1,300 and something videos. I got to learn something even passively. And then just the fact that I myself chase after stuff so I could be better for the people that, interact with this channel. I mean, it's crazy how you get a question and we could attack it from so many freaking different perspectives. And then, I've been in the room with people where they'll have a concern, and I listen to the room, as the concern's being addressed, and I let the room talk. And I'm like, man, I've covered this on my show. I could provide 20 different angles to this. And I'm so proud of myself, but I don't steal the moment. This is just for me in my head, but they'll bring up a concern and I just want to listen. I do. There's times when I just want to listen. And I'm like, man, I anytime a concern comes up, I could always figure out, I've covered this. I talked to Russ on this. I talked to Connie on this. And, I could hit this from so many angles right now, but it's not my moment. It's not my moment. It's theirs, because in the process of them doing that, they're doing exactly what we've done, Russ. They're learning. And I don't want to stop that. I want them to figure it out, because just like I did, we didn't come up with 20 different angles off of one dialogue. You know, it was a series of dialogues, and that's the first time I think people make the effort and say, you know what, you know, through that dialogue, you know, maybe this profession is a bit more interesting, because in corrections, barely ever is something just black and white. There's so much intrigue and uniqueness, and I approach everything. One last thing in corrections, good advice here if you want. Approach corrections with curiosity and not judgment. Look to learn and don't judge what you're learning. As always, guys, the show is Teared Up. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify every time I post a video. Stay safe.